Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I inquire?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your full name, spelling your last name for the record?
Stephen Rocca, R-O-C-C-A,
How old are you?
56,
What's your date of birth?
7/16/1968.
Do you work?
Yes.
What do you do for work?
Self-employed carpenter.
How long have you been doing that?
Pretty much my whole life.
Where do you live?
I live at 385 Newton Street, Waltham, Mass.
Who do you live with?
My son, Sam.
Are you currently married?
No.
Have you ever been married?
Yes.
To who?
Kathleen
And what's Kathleen's last name?
Mlan.
When did you meet her?
I met her back in high school.
Did you have any children together?
Yes, 3.
What are their names?
Sophia.
And what's Sophia's date of birth?
Sophia's date of birth is 7/16/2002.
And your next child?
Mary Grace.
Does she go by Grace?
Yes.
And what's Grace's date of birth?
12/29/03.
And you said that you lived with your son, Sam?
Yes.
And was that Katie's son as well?
Yes.
And what's Sam's date of birth?
Sam's date of birth is February 7th, 2007.
When did your marriage to Katie end?
2011.
Where did Katie live after your marriage ended?
With her mom.
What town was that in?
Waltham.
Where did your kids live at that time?
With her.
How often did you communicate with Katie after your marriage ended?
Daily.
How often would you see her?
Weekly.
And would that be to exchange the children?
Yes.
Turning to the beginning of 2020, where were Katie and your children living?
Tell me the date again, please.
The beginning of 2020.
I believe she was living in Sudbury.
At some point, did that change?
Yes.
Where did she move to?
I believe to Dover.
And who was living with her in Dover?
My 3 children, Harry's 2 children, and Harry.
And you say Harry, who do you mean?
Mr. Tuerk there?
And you see him in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Can you please identify him by an article of clothing that he's
Striped
wearing?
blue tie.
I'm sorry?
A striped blue tie.
Your Honor, could the record please reflect identification?
Yes.
When did you meet the defendant?
Probably 2020.
Would you communicate with him separately from Katie?
Never.
How often did you see him?
Maybe when I picked the children up. I hardly ever had any contact with him.
In February of 2020, were you aware that the defendant was no longer living in Dover with Katie and your children?
Yes.
How did you know that?
Katie told me.
Where was he living, if you know?
Not sure.
How often were you communicating with Katie at that point?
Daily.
And how would you most often communicate with Katie?
Text message.
Would you ever speak with her on the phone as well?
Times.
How often did you go to the house after the defendant left?
Once a week. Weekends.
After COVID hit in March of 2020, how often did you communicate with Katie?
Same, daily.
How often would you see the kids once the world shut down for COVID?
I didn't.
How long did you go without seeing your children?
Probably about 3 weeks.
Turning to April 17th of 2020, did Katie discuss the possibility of reconciling with the defendant with you?
Yes.
Did Katie text you an email from the defendant's attorney that you read?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yeah, let me just see counsel at sidebar, please.
Do you recall the substance of that email?
Not accurate enough to go off my top of my head, no.
Would seeing a copy of your text message refresh your recollection?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Is your memory refreshed?
Yeah.
And what was the substance of that email?
She was saying, he was saying that he wants to get back into the relationship and he's willing to go to.
I'm just going to stop you right there. So when you say he, who do you mean?
Harry.
Okay. And what's the date on that email?
So this is like triple level hearsay at this point. I'm objecting to
Is
it.
that an objection?
Yes, it is. I apologize.
All right, rephrase, sustained. Rephrase the question, please.
Okay. And could you just tell me what the date on that email is?
Friday, April 17th, 2020.
And that's an email that Katie sent to you. It's a screenshot, is that correct?
Screenshot, correct.
And after you read that email, did you receive another text message from Katie, or did you have a conversation with her regarding the substance of that email?
I don't remember.
Do you remember discussing the email with Katie?
Yes.
Do you remember discussing the reconciliation with Katie?
Yes.
And what were her feelings on reconciling with the defendant in April of 2020?
Objection.
Overruled.
Answer?
Yes, please.
She wanted to get back together so the children have a stable place to be in.
On May 8th of 2020, did the defendant return from Florida?
Yes.
What was your understanding of why he was coming back?
Objection.
Sustained in that form.
How did he get back from Florida?
If he knows.
He drove.
Did you have any part in that?
Yes, I drove Katie half to New York and dropped her off, and she drove back with him.
Who else was in the car when you drove Katie to New York?
My 3 children.
When you dropped Katie off in New York, did you see the defendant?
Yes.
And at that point, is it your understanding that Katie and the defendant continued to drive back to Massachusetts from New York?
Yes.
Where did he stay when he got back, if you know?
Don't know.
Prior to the defendant coming back to Massachusetts on May 8th of 2020, did you have any conversations with Katie regarding where the defendant would stay when he returned to Massachusetts?
Objection.
Overruled.
She asked me if he could stay at, I have a 2-family apartment. She asked me if he could stay there. I said it was rented and he couldn't.
Were there any other conversations you had about where the defendant could stay once he returned to Massachusetts in May of 2020?
Objection.
Overruled.
One of her possibilities was staying at her mother's condo in Belmont.
So Katie was actively looking.
That was empty.
That was empty. I'm sorry to interrupt. So Katie was actively looking for places for the defendant to stay.
Yes.
Turning your attention to May 15th of 2020, do you remember that day?
Say the date again, please.
May 15th of 2020?
Yes, I do.
What happened on that day?
I believe I got a phone call, phone call from one of her friends.
Do you remember that friend's name?
No, I don't.
As a result of that phone call, what did you do?
I called her phone several times. I called the children. And then I called that hotel that I received the name from that friend.
Okay. When you say that you called her cell phone several times, who do you mean?
Katie's cell phone.
Did you receive any answer?
No answer.
You stated that you contacted your children?
Yes.
Were you able to speak with them?
Yes, I did.
You also stated that you contacted the hotel?
Yes, I did.
Did you speak with somebody at the hotel?
Yes, I did.
After making all of those phone calls, what did you do?
I drove to that hotel.
What happened when you got to the hotel?
I saw an ambulance taking Harry out on a stretcher.
Then what did you do?
I drove to Dover to where my children were.
Did you enter the house?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go in the house?
Went into the kitchen and then up to the kids' rooms.
Who was in the house when you entered the house?
My 3 children.
Where were they located when you first went into the house, if you can remember?
I don't remember where they were. I yelled out to them and they came to me.
You stated that you went up to their bedrooms?
Yes.
Did you make any observations of the floor when you were in the house on May 15th of 2020?
Yes, I saw some black dots that were on the floor that looked weird.
Had you seen them before when you had been in the house?
Never.
Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 195 on the screen? Looking at Exhibit 195, can you please explain to the jurors what those are?
I don't know what they were. They were just black dots that were in a pattern on her wooden floor that was in the same pattern every so many inches or feet or wherever they were.
So when you say the same pattern, do you mean those
2 dots.
2 dots next to each other?
Yeah, then it went a blank space, another 2 dots, a blank space, another 2 dots.
And where did you see these black dots?
Throughout the kitchen floor.
Anywhere else in the home?
If you go into their kitchen floor, their foyer, up to where the stairs were.
Did you see them in the upstairs hallway?
I didn't see them upstairs. I didn't remember seeing them upstairs.
So the first time you saw these black dots was on May 15th of 2020 when you entered the kitchen? Mm-hmm. And they continued as you were walking up the stairs to your children's bedrooms?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Rocca, District Attorney asked you a question about Harry living somewhere, and you mentioned something about Belmont, right?
Excuse me?
You mentioned something about her empty place in Belmont.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And in fact, sir, you had exchanged text messages with her, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And she told you that Harry was coming back from Florida at the end of the week, back in May of 2020, right?
Yes, she did.
She indicated that he needed a place to quarantine for 2 weeks, right?
Yes, she did.
She indicated that she wanted him to go to her mom's empty place in Belmont, but my family's being hard about it, is what she told you, right?
Don't remember exactly what she said, but she was asking about staying there.
Okay, but her family was being hard about it. You know, she told you that much.
Yes.
Didn't want her to, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And she said, I don't understand why, because the place is empty, right?
Yes.
A couple of times said, I don't understand what the problem is. So when, like a timeline, did you get divorced from Miss McLean?
I got divorced in 2017.
Okay. And then she was remarried again, correct?
I believe so.
You believe so?
I'd never seen it. Yes,
There was a guy by the name of Chris Foley, right?
yes,
Do you remember when she married Chris Foley?
no,
Did your 3 children live with her and Chris Foley?
yes.
And how long were your children living with her and Chris Foley?
I don't know.
Was it more than a year?
Yes,
And then she got divorced from Chris Foley, correct?
yes,
And she, to your observation, her state of mind was that she didn't get along very well with Chris Foley, correct?
Sustained.
So when was it? Because you told the jury that it was 2020 that you knew that she and her children were living with Harry, right? 2020, right?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. If I suggest to you, sir, that in fact it was 2017 that Harry and Miss McLean met online, and it was in March of 2018 that Kathleen and your 3 children moved into Harry's home. March of 2018. 2 years before you're telling this jury you knew that he was taking care of them in his house.
Their dates, I don't know.
Of course, it's understandable. So let me ask it like this. Do you recall that your 3 children, for a chunk of time, from March of 2018 until, let's say, December of 2019, were living in Dover, in Harry's house with Harry?
I don't know the exact dates that she moved.
Understandable, and you don't have to know the exact dates. I just want to make sure that it's understood that well prior to 2020, you knew that your children and Miss McLean were living with her boyfriend, Harry.
Yes.
in Dover. Yes.
Yes,
And you didn't see them during that period of time either, did you?
Objection.
Sustained in that form.
Can I approach that by?
Sustained in the form.
All right, I'll try another one. When Harry had his house that your ex-wife was living in with your 3 children, for that period of time, 2019 up until 2000, December of 19, when you got married, you had not visited with your children.
yes, I have.
Sorry?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
Yes, I
when
did.
you visit with them?
I went to their house and picked them up and brought them to my house,
Went to what house?
the house that she was living in Dover.
So and you weren't allowed in the house. You had to park out on the street.
At a park in the street, yes, sir.
All right, one second. Sustained. Rephrase it, please, and just wait for an objection.
Sorry.
Thank you. Can you ask the question again, Mr.
Sure.
Reddington, please?
You had to park out in the street, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'd park out in the street to pick up your kids. And would you agree with me, sir, that before the pandemic, shall we say, that you and Ms. McLean were not getting along? Isn't that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Would you suggest, sir, that you were angry because Ms. McLean was allowing Chris? She's objecting.
Objection.
All right, ask the question. Don't answer until there's an objection, sir.
Well, you were upset that she was allowing Chris Foley to stay in Harry's house, weren't you, during the pandemic?
Okay, that's sustained.
She didn't. Okay. So during this period of time, sir, during the pandemic, you would agree with me that you had issues, if you will, with Kathleen McLan, correct?
Objection.
The yes or no. Overall, just a yes or no.
Is that right?
Repeat the question?
Yeah, you had issues with Ms. McLean during that period of time that your children was living with Harry, right?
No.
Can you just
No?
specify the, Mr. Reddington, can you specify the dates, please?
The actual dates, okay?
The dates that you're
So-
referring to when you say period of time.
So in December of 19, they get married, right?
Yeah.
You knew they got married.
Yes.
And she told you they got married, right?
Yes.
And you didn't like that, did you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you paying child support?
Yes.
Objection.
Sustained.
Can I approach the side by?
Yes.
So you knew after they got married, you knew prior to the time they got married, that your children were living in that house with Ms. McLean and Harry Tuerk, right?
Yes.
Yes. And you knew that, for example, as counsel has already elicited or brought out, that your son Sam has certain issues that require IEPs in the school and things of that nature, right?
Yes.
A lot of intensive attention, correct?
Yes.
You never went to one meeting in the school at all regarding your son's condition, did you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you know, sir, that Harry would go to the meetings for your son?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you ever take your kid out in a car, your daughter, and teach her how to drive a car?
Objection.
Sustained.
You know that you did?
Objection.
Sustained.
How old were they at the time?
Sustained, sir.
Objection.
The objection's sustained. You don't answer that.
So, the police talk with you, and they, at some point, did they ask you for your phone so they could see if you had text messages with Kathleen McLean?
No, sir.
Did they ever even look at your phone?
No.
Now, you knew that in December of 2019 that Harry and Ms. McLean had gotten married, right? Or thereabouts.
Thereabouts, yes.
And they were married for about 4 months, 5 months, right?
I guess so.
And at some point, they got divorced, right? Or they were in the process of trying to get divorced, right?
I guess so.
You guess so. During that period of time, sir, did you have occasion to go, when he's out of the house, you knew he was out of the house at some point, right?
Yes, I did.
You knew that he had, she got a restraining order against him, and he had to leave his home in February 2020, right?
Yes.
Now, would you agree with me, sir, that your relationship was strained using that term? He's objecting.
Objection.
Ask the question. Ask the question. Wait 1 second.
Okay? That your relationship with Harry Tuerk as the husband of Ms. McLean was strained. Would you agree with that, sir?
Objection.
Okay, the objection is sustained.
Kathleen McLean called the police on you on a number of times.
Objection.
Sustained.
I want to approach the side by.
Sustained. So you are to disregard. We'll resume at 11:30 and we'll go to about 1. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll wait for them to direct us.
Jurors exiting, all rise. Jurors, please leave your notebooks in the chairs. Follow me, please. Just give me a moment. We'll be right with you, folks.
King, are you all set? Want to wait a minute? Okay. Okay. So the issue is post-2020, post-January of 2020. That's the time period we're talking about?
No, the issue, Your Honor, would be May 4th of 2019, October 29th of 2019, May 5 of 2019, June 14th of 2019, and yeah, so that would be the time frame.
What is the proffer? What are you seeking to elicit from this witness? And he stepped out? Mr.
The
Laughlin?
proffer is the bias that.
1 second. Has he stepped out? Okay, go ahead.
The proffer, Your Honor, is the bias that clearly I'm entitled to explore with this witness as it relates to, for example, May 4th of 2019, the Dover Police Department received a phone call. Kathleen McLan found a threatening letter on the front door of her and Ingolf Tuerk, and they obtained the letter. Kathleen Mlan was very scared, and Kathleen Mlan indicated that she was concerned for her safety as she had issues in her past where her house was broken into, said that her ex-husband, she had an ex-husband, I, meaning the cop, asked if this could be him. They both stated no. Kathleen asked if we could fingerprint the document. I explained the surface, said there was any alarms in the video surveillance. They answered that they're going to be getting video surveillance. In May 5 of 2019,
So
Kathleen,
that was one incident.
that's the first incident I just wanted to reference to the court where they were.
Let's go through the incidents one at a time. Ms. McLaughlin?
Your Honor, the May 4th incident that he's talking about specifically in the police report stated, she stated that she had an ex-husband, so I asked if this could be him, and they both stated no, meaning the victim and the defendant. So I don't know how that's relevant, considering they both stated that it could not be. Furthermore, they had the letter fingerprinted, and there were no fingerprints found on it, and he was never considered a suspect in that matter. So I don't believe it's relevant at all.
So
why is that relevant, Mr. Reddington?
So my point, Your Honor, is that I'm not looking to suggest that Mr. Rocca is the one that wrote the note or left the note, but I want to show their state of mind that both Kathleen and Harry were obviously of heightened awareness, if you will, and were in fear, and were concerned enough that she called the police. That's it, on that May, whatever that dated, May 4th.
There's no indication that she called the police with respect to your client, correct?
No, my client was one of the ones that was a victim.
So why is it relevant?
Because it shows their state of mind, that they were concerned that there was a note that had been left on their door.
How does it have anything to do with this witness? I
So
would ask
that
you
the
exclude.
objection to that incident is sustained.
May 5 of 2019. They take a report from a resident on suspicious activity. Resident,
This is, when you say they, you're talking about the Dover Police?
I'm looking at the police department, I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Dover Police Department, on May 5 of 2019, Detective Chason, Chaisson, took a report regarding the fact that Mr. Rocca had sent a text to Kathleen Mlan indicating that he, Rocca, knew that Tuerk has handguns, whatever that has to do with anything. He had a license to carry, license was valid, and he had firearms that he had purchased legitimately and were kept in a gun safe under lock and key. They were very concerned over the fact that meaning Rocca, would send this text. Mlan states that Rocca has many law enforcement connections and a tendency of getting out of serious trouble in the past. She then made reference to the fact that she's been a victim of domestic violence from Mr. Rocca, which I understand has been excluded by you. I can't get into that, and I would not attempt to. That he's been the subject of civil restraining orders in 2011, 2013. I understand that's been excluded. I won't get into that. It appears the last order, this is the police report, last order expired in 2015. Detective Chason asked Mlan if she was in fear at this time. At that point, she was not in fear. They advised she could go to Dedham District Court, contact the department at any time she felt in fear. The main concern is how Rocca was basically stalking them and why he was getting access to information that would normally not be subject to public purview.
So this is a text sent by whom?
No, Ms. Mlan had reached out to the police because they were concerned. I'm sorry, a text sent by Rocca to Mlan and Harry regarding his purchase of handguns, that he knew that he had handguns, is what it says.
This is a text that Mr. Rocca sent to
Yes.
Katie
To
Mlan?
Kate Mlan, and she was concerned about that, yep. I don't know why the guy's sending her a text.
Your Honor, there is no text, first of all, on the police report or any that we have found. It is a phone call that Ms. Mlan made to the Dover Police.
Could I respectfully interrupt? I apologize to my sister. It says right in the police report, received a text from her ex-husband, Stephen Rocca.
But we don't have the text. is
I don't
my
care you have
point.
the text, it's still a police
Let her
report.
finish, Mr. Reddington.
It is a conversation that Ms. Mlan had with the Dover Police Department stating that the defendant had purchased handguns from the Bass Pro Shop and that she had received a text message from the witness, Mr. Rocca, stating he has handguns or asking something about the handguns, and they wanted to know how the witness, Mr. Rocca, would be able to get that information, and that was the concern. I don't think this is relevant. I also think it's opening a door to the defendant owning guns. There was a 209A restraining order that we heard about. Sergeant Wilcox was the one who testified about the restraining order. The Commonwealth did not bring in that the Dover police confiscated multiple guns in February of 2020, and that the defendant no longer had access to guns on May 15th of 2020 when he strangled his wife. So, Your Honor, I think we're getting into a situation where we're going to be eliciting testimony that the defendant had access to handguns in May of 2019, then they were confiscated in February of 2020 when the restraining order was issued, and he never received them back. I'm not sure how Mr. Rocca getting the information about the defendant having handguns is relevant to any of the issues in this case, and I would ask that you not allow that testimony.
So no, my objection.
Okay, the objection is noted. That's, the objection is sustained and the objection is noted.
June 14th, 2019, Kathleen Mlan called the police in Dover Police Department that she had concerns about Mr. Rocca, that he was acting erratically, that he was basically causing her significant concern, that he was challenging the custody of their children. And she explained that she had sole custody, and then, of course, she gets into his being physically abusive to her, which I understand I can't get into, the restraining orders, which I won't get into. While on the phone with Rocca, while on the phone with her, Rocca called the police department looking to speak to an officer. Rocca indicated that he was upset because he wanted to go see his children. She didn't want him to see the children. He was supposed to stay away. He didn't stay away. Rocca ended up, or they saw, 1752, 522, Sergeant Menace was checking the neighborhood, observed the vehicle in the area of the house, registered to John Rocca, whoever that is. He then made contact with the operator, who identified as Stephen Rocca. At the same time, Kathleen again called the station to report that Stephen was outside her house and that she was obviously concerned. June 14th, 2019, at 5:05, she calls the station, states that Rocca is coming to her house. She obviously was concerned about him coming to the house. The police saw the vehicle there. They pull up behind Rocca, argue with Rocca about he's there to pick up his children. They have this argument. They have a problem in that regard. And then Rocca did not agree with the interpretation and ultimately left the area. Shows his bias.
His bias because he was going to pick up his children? I'm not sure.
It shows his bias because every time the guy moves, Kathleen Mlan's calling up the police and lying about the guy or exaggerating about the guy or trying to get orders against him.
Ms. McLaughlin.
Your Honor, this is exactly the type of information that the Commonwealth's motion in limine dealt with. It was all bad acts. There was no time frame on it regarding probate court matters, civil matters, anything having to do with the witness and the alleged victim, and it has no relevance into the matter at issue, which is whether or not the defendant killed his wife.
All right, so it's sustained with respect to any specifics about the calls to the police department, et cetera. If you want to elicit from him that he would sometimes go and pick up his kids and there would be issues in a general sense, you can elicit that, but nothing further than that.
What does that mean? What am I supposed to ask him about? What's a general sense? The fact that the fact that she calls the police on him is what's causing, obviously, an inference that he would have an issue with either her or with him. It goes to his bias. But if you're letting me ask him in a general way, I don't know what that means. I have to ask him.
And ask him if there were issues sometimes when he went to pick up his kids and leave it at that. I don't see why the specifics are relevant and why police involvement is relevant. You asked him where would he go pick up his kids for different periods of time. He answered the Dover house. So to the extent you want to generally elicit that there was some issues, you may.
All right, no, my objection to your ruling, and I'll ask him that and try to adhere to the court's limitations. I'd like to revisit the issue that I would try to get into evidence that was excluded by Your Honor as it relates to the argument that they had in 2020 where Rocca was upset at the fact that Chris Foley, the ex-husband, had been hanging out at Harry's Dover house, and I'm quoting from a text I was not yelling at you. The concern in my voice is that it's being taken. I'm yelling. It's not yelling. It's concern. If I find out that Chris is at your house again, I'm going to call Debbie from DSS and explain the situation. You're not putting the children's safety first and having him come to your house and exposing them again. That's why the governor has a stay-at-home shutdown order, and they're not going to order, and they're not going to go to school order, I believe is what it means. And I would have figured you would have got that. I think that, again, goes to the issue of his state of mind and bias as it relates to, and also showing that this guy, Chris Foley, had been in the house as well. Well, Harry's not there.
I don't know what relevance that has to do with.
Of course not.
Okay, sustained, that is excluded. Anything else at this time?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
And,
Not for me, I got enough, thank you.
all right, why don't we take no more than 10 minutes, okay? And we'll go to 1 o'clock today.
All rise. We'll stand in recess until about 11:35. Sure. Keep your voice up for me, please. Thank you.
As it stands now, Your Honor, then I have no further questions for this witness.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, you may step down, sir, thank you.